We all love a legendary comeback, and Degree Original Cool Rush is back and better than ever. Cool Rush isn't just a scent, it's a movement, a fan favorite that delivers bold, fresh vibes and all-day sweat protection. Whether you have a man that spends hours in the gym, heads into the office early, or is just trying to stay fresh on a long day, Cool Rush has their back. Head to your local Walmart or Target and grab Degree Cool Rush, the fan favorite scent from the world's #1 antiperspirant brand.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my son Milo.
There's no Milo here.
Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the 5 of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do? I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault. A new series streaming now only on Peacock.
Hello, family. I'm Janaya Future Khan, and this is Dark Woke. Just before we hit it, I want to say thank you to all the listeners out there, and a special shout out to the supporters who make this show possible. It truly means the world to me. If you'd like to become a member, our Patreon is linked in the episode right up below. As you know, babies, we are in hell. Now, the occasion is significant. The occasion of being in hell is significant. I don't want to undermine that. I'm going to prove all the ways that we're in hell, but that in his own way, Trump is joining us because he is taking so many L's this week, the week before, the time coming, all the stress tests that the fascists are putting on the system. Well, it does adjust. It does adjust. We have competing interests. You have the system, which in a way wants to preserve itself because now it's under threat by the increased growing concentration of wealth and power that billionaires have, right? The system that has historically worked against us, the system that we occasionally can move and bend to our whim before it adjusts and then comes after us again. We're in this weird triangle love affair that we didn't want to be in. I've been in them too much. So I'm just like, we're in hell. I got to tell you some things that I found out. We are going to be talking about the Trump Mamdani meetup and what that means. Some very important updates on the L's that Donald Trump has taken, ways that we're fighting back. But I really want to make the case for how we're in hell. Let me start with this. We found something out about women. It's rare. I have for you a moment of vindication. This is to any current boyfriend, any former boyfriend, anyone who was a BFF of anyone ever, right? Because you got to have a certain kind of relationship to be a BFF. You know this, right? And anyone who loves women, this is vindication for you. You are validated. She is, in fact, just a little bit dehydrated. It does make a difference. She needs that water. Let me tell you. Okay, this is the Journal of Nutrition. This is back in 2012. So I want you to know that we can trust this because it's not coming from Robert Kennedy's current health framework of America. No, this is actual scientific data that women with just a 1.36% increase in dehydration experience substantial mood changes. I'm not talking about like the little bits, right? I just want us to think 1.36%, 1% of dehydration. You're getting an 8% increase in hostility, a 17% increase in fatigue, right? Your vigor down 12%, mood disturbances up 19%. Task difficulty perception, 58%. Concentration, down. 45%. You are 2 times more likely to get headaches. That is science, you guys. That's science. She just needs a little bit of water. Get her that water. Don't tell her that she looks dehydrated. Just get her the glass. Just get her the glass. Just get her a little sip. Get her a little sippy sip. She'll be good to go. She'll be good as new. No, but seriously though, do that. It's water or it's iron. I'm telling you. A little creatine in there. You've got the healthiest bird on the planet. All right, let me get my shit together. So, I don't know. I just feel like we're in hell if 1% is going to have that much of an increase on your mood. You have to be in hell to get for dehydration to mean that much. But don't take my word for it. How about this headline? Right? How about this headline? the strange and totally real plan to blot out the sun and reverse global warming. You can find that story in Politico. No, it's fantastic, okay? Because we're going to die, y'all. We're just going to die. Do you remember that episode of The Simpsons when Mr. Burns decides that he's just going to blot out the sun because it was really just about his preference? Back when we had a healthy distrust and disgust for vast amounts of concentration of wealth, because we understood that required that you exploited people, and we understood that. And now when billionaires have books out, they're like, here are the 12 books you need to read. This is what this billionaire is. This is what he drinks in the morning. This is Bezos' skincare routine. Can we not? We used to literally hate absurd wealth hoarding and concentrations. Anyway, Mr. Burns blots out the sun. It has massive deleterious effects on everyone and everything because it's the sun. But now, don't worry, you guys, because there is a 25-person startup called Stardust Solutions. Stardust Solutions, and they're developing technology to block the sun and turn down the planet's temperature. Let me add another layer to this. Guess who's backing the startup? Like, guess who's in this startup? It's an American-Israeli company. It's an Israeli and U.S. startup. I'm like, great, yeah. No, we want two of the biggest weapons manufacturers in the world that have really been able to develop their wealth, their country's wealth, by being super military powers, that we then use on brown people. But no. Let's get those folks to put and release, right, a massive amount. We're talking about millions of tons. Okay, listen to this. Let me add, they developed a special reflective particle, right, and the tech to release that particle. So they want to release millions of tons into the atmosphere, right? The goal is to dim the light of the sun across the world, thus reversing global warming. I'm sure there's some alarm bells ringing right now. There should be some alarm bells ringing. I don't like this. When I read about the science behind this, it seems that there's a lot in question. What concerns me, outside of the obvious, which is we going dead, what concerns me is how little this government and the people in power would give a damn. Like, if they're like, oh, can we make money off of this? Okay, well, make it. Get it made now. Get it made yesterday. We need this. It doesn't matter what the impacts are. I'm like, if we end up dying because we released these like particles, and then we had no idea what to do with the particles once they were released. Like, this is America, babe. This is what's going to happen. Then we're going to have the problem of the particles. And then we're going to end up in like The Day After Tomorrow, or whatever that movie is with the snow and the train. Snow Runner? What the fuck is that movie called? Snow Train. You know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. This doesn't convince you. This Simpsons-like plot doesn't convince you that we're in hell. How about this, okay? I had to learn by consuming the news what felching was. I had to learn what felching was. And not only did I have to learn what felching was, I had to learn what felching was by reading the poetry of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That's how I had to learn what felching was. In fact, myself and Ryan, was it Liza? He's like, this is the guy that was engaged to the woman that R.F. Kennedy Jr. had an emotional affair with. Okay. He also learned what felching was by reading RFK's poetry. So in a way, we both went through a very difficult experience. I don't want to minimize that. I had to learn what felching was by imagining RFK's voice, right, and reading the poetry that he wrote. Let me just make it really, really clear, okay? Last week, I read something, right? I read you it was a very brief clip. It was such a brief clip, okay? About the emotional affair that Olivia Nuzzi had, or whatever her name is, right? That she had with this guy. And then you find out that she's actually pretty much had relationships on some level that were inappropriate with every man that she's interviewed. And if you could get through the very bad writing, right? Like if you manage to get through the really, really bad writing, you will then learn that it wasn't an affair because Robert Kennedy Jr. was married. It wasn't simply an emotional affair because of that. It was an affair because she was also engaged. And I just, I'm going to tell you right now, like 3 new incels were made because of this. 100%. It's just not, it's okay. First, I'm going to tell you what felching is if you don't know. Then I'm going to read to you the lines that came out of it. Okay. Like, because I just want to make sure that we understand that Ryan Lidza is like a Politico journalist. This is a real person with a real job. Olivia Nuzzi, I don't know if she's actually a real person. She's nuts. Okay. So this guy finds out that his fiance is having an affair, right? With Robert F. Kennedy Jr., somebody that she's also a journalist. I'm using heavy air quotes here, right? And she's supposed to be interviewing this guy. And then he has to go through the text message exchanges and poetry that Robert Kennedy Jr. wrote to her. Okay. So first, what is felching? Felching is when one sexual partner sucks semen out of another person's anus or vagina, right? After unprotected penetrative sex, right? So I'm using the definition from the National Institute of Health, which RFK currently leads. He oversees it as part of his top position at HHS. Okay. So he's the guy who's in charge of our health and safety. I just want to make sure that we are completely on the same page with that. Okay. So in it, he writes lines like, your open mouth awaiting my harvest. He is, again, talking about felching. These are quotes from Robert Kennedy. I mean to squeeze your cheeks to force open your mouth. I'll hold your nose as you look up at me to encourage you to swallow. Don't spill a drop. But you know that he said it like, don't spill a drop, right? I am a river, you are my canyon. I mean to flow through you. I mean to subdue and tame you, my love. That's what he wrote. And all in the context of felching. Okay. Does this help illustrate that we're not? But what I am going to remind us now, though, is that hell could be a good time. We could make hell a good time. Right? We have got to, because if we're all in hell, right? Nobody's winning. Nobody's winning in hell. We're all in hell. It's just that the heat isn't going to be felt by everyone equally. We got to change that up a little bit, because I got to tell you, Trump has been taking a lot more L's than I would have thought that he could take, right? He's taking a lot more L's. Okay, first of all, you got the New York Post, and they're writing about how there's a whole fashion show where only the wool of male sheep who only love other male sheep, gay wool, you guys, there's a fashion show, right? And only gay wool was used to make the clothes for this fashion show. Now you might be like, gay wool. There's a lot of sheep, apparently, the boy ones, that just don't want to get down. They don't like that UE. Okay? There's a bunch of gay male sheep that don't like that you, right? They don't like that UE. They took a E off of that. It just ew to them. Okay? So now we have a whole fashion show where there's just gay wool on stage. And all I could think was, woke is back, baby. woke is back. It's going to be a slow grind up, but we're going to get there. What else happened? What's another L of Trump? Marjorie Taylor Greene resigns. Now, look, a loss for them is not a win for us. I need us to be so much smarter, right? Like, Marjorie Taylor Greene was a key force in normalizing and mainstreaming MAGA. She was able to bring MAGA into Congress, right? To use every means necessary to disrupt Congress and its function, right? Now, because she found out that the power that she assumed would come with obedience and loyalty, right? Her right, according to their own tenets, right? If you are loyal and you kiss the ring, you will get the benefits, except you forgot something. You are a bitch. You forgot you were a woman. You wasn't just going to be handed anything. They didn't give it to you. You wanted governor, and they said no. You started to talk, right? People started to listen a little bit more. And then Trump started to call you a traitor. Marjorie Taylor Greene, now she is resigning. So she said she'll be resigning from office. Her last day is going to be January 5th, 2026. I don't see this as something that simply goes away. In the event that if she is somebody who just goes away, she'd go away in the way that Sarah Palin went away, which Corey mentioned to me today, right? And I thought about that because Sarah Palin was really another person, right, who brought in and ushered in this kind of deranged, Delulu, overreach, hyper right, prequel to Tea Party politics, all this nonsense. It would infuriate me either way if this person went off into the caves, into the wilderness, or if she became a pundit, which is more likely in today's America, right? Where she ends up, being treated like the common sense lady. This is very concerning to me. Yes, I do think Marjorie Taylor Greene is making some sense. Yes, I am a big fan of coalition, and I do think the enemy of my enemy is my friend, whatever. But if it's not a coalition that has a specific set of outcomes attached to it that we're working towards, specific campaigns, I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm not one of these people that's like, oh my God, you see, we're right because they're saying the same things we are now. We were right. We were right. We shouldn't send money to Israel because, they're saying America first, but we're just like, because they're murdering children and adults and anyone who is brown and Palestinian, anyone who is Arab and Muslim, they need to go. We're like, oh no, we want that to stop. But they're just like, also America first. Now look, there might be a time where it is most strategic for us to form a coalition to help dismantle the coalition of power the current government has. But this thing that we do where it's like, see how right we are? Even Marjorie Taylor Greene is making sense. I do think we have to be really careful with that. Because first of all, let's champion our own first and foremost. Our folks are literally the ones saying the smart things. Second of all, we normalize those voices more. You think I haven't seen a hilarious Nick Fuentes clip? I actually, as you know, kind of like the guy. And that bothers me I'm not surprised. We're full of contradictions. I'm not different, right? There's a level of incoherence about what our brain likes and what our politics are. I can't allow my entertainment, my enjoyment of him to trump my responsibility out loud, right? And I think that there's obviously times and places and, if you're going to get into a debate, be tireless, all this stuff. I do think we're going to see a rise in populism, which I am going to be talking about. Because Zohran and Trump met. What does that mean? And they got on swimmingly, apparently. What does that mean? We're going to be talking about that. But I've been thinking about this a little bit because there are people who have unleashed hell, like real evil in the world, realize that they aren't going to eat as good as others, and then want to come back. And, I'm a huge believer in redemption, but I'm like, I don't actually know what you believe. In the same way that I know JD Vance is dangerous for lots of reasons, but largely because he's going to go with whatever price tag fits his current bottom line, right? He's going to go with whoever's got the best couch. That's JD Vance. JD Vance is going to go to the team with the best couch. All right. Marjorie Taylor Greene, on the other hand, is not somebody I would count as an ally. But the fact that she's like, actually, I'm out of here, like, fuck you. I'm curious about that. I want to see where that goes before. But either way, it's a blow to Trump, because as much as I am frustrated because of how honestly forceful she was in helping to normalize MAGA, it also it speaks volumes. Really speaks volumes on the fact that, like, that's one of his core supporters, unshakable. And she's no more. Apparently, she is no more. Y'all about to hear some breaking news on this. Another big L for Donald Trump. Remember how he's been running a fucking crusade against U.S. attorney generals, right? One Letitia James, one James Comey, right? I didn't say that right. It's Comey, isn't it? It's fucking Comey. It's Comey, right? Okay. Peep this, right? So the judge overseeing this said that the interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, right? That's the woman that Donald Trump handpicked for this case, had no lawful authority to indict former FBI director and New York Attorney General, right? Letitia James and James Comey. This is fantastic. So, like, Trump handpicks this person to go after his political opponents, which is considered illegal, right? Like, literally illegal. And he was like, you didn't even do it right. These cases don't stand. So, because the person was illegally appointed, and the ruling is a blow to two of the most high-profile cases, right? And prosecutions that Donald Trump himself has sought and pushed for. He used the Department of Justice, the Justice Department, to pursue political enemies, and it didn't stick. This has been a huge, huge case for this guy. He was like, this is how I'm going to show you. If you ever came after me, if you ever think about coming after me, look what I'm going to do to these two people, right? And now, to add to the L's, or just flag this breaking news, DOJ, the Department of Government Efficiency, has been shut down. Now, I'm thrilled. It demonstrates, I think, an end to the demonic union between Trump and Musk, even though they'll always support each other's bottom lines, because it's all about money for them, right? It's all about money. It's all about money for them. And at the end of the day, racism, transphobia, all these things are just useful towards the bottom line. It's sad to me that a lot of the people who buy into it are the people who don't have any means, who don't feel like they have any power, who are looking for a source of their pain. They want to blame something, and that's what the Trump administration has offered them. In fact, in a way, that's what populism has offered them, right? So DOJ was used to demonstrate to Donald Trump's MAGA base, hey, see, we're going to clean everything up. That's not what they were used for. It was to gut all federal infrastructure. But you know what? Maybe things are working out. We don't know it. Maybe all these tariffs, right? All these promises that the Trump administration made running on this populist framework, maybe it's working out. We don't know. Why don't we have a look? Why don't we have a look at the economy? Let's have a look at the economy and see how it's faring under the small, dry, ridiculous hands of one President Donald Trump.
I mean, just your costs are up versus a year ago. Groceries, 85%, utilities, 78%, healthcare, 67%, housing, 66%, gasoline, 54%. The bottom line is this:
Gasoline.
feel like prices are rising in each and every single part of their lives, rising ever climber, and they just don't feel like, Kate Baldwin, that they can catch a break.
The Treasury Secretary in new comments kind of dismissed the impact tariffs is having on inflation, also saying that prices are going to be coming down in weeks. Some other prices are going to be coming down in months. What do Americans think?
Yeah, they think he's full of it. That's exactly what they think. I mean, just take a look here. Tariffs raising prices are raising prices right now. Click over to the Cape side of the screen, 71%.
How dare you?
How dare I do that? 84% of Democrats, 74% of independents, and even a majority of Republicans. When you can get a majority of Republicans to agree with majority of Democrats, you know that the pain is being felt by the American public right now. The Treasury Secretary can try and tell the people something, but they can feel in their pocketbooks. They simply put, don't buy what he and this administration is selling when it comes to tariffs.
You know, and Harry, one thing we've heard over and
Whoa, just pause it for a second. Like, this is amazing to me. Where are we at here? Can we just drag this back a little bit, Corey, just to where the other graphic is? Like, I want to be clear about this, y'all. How's the economy doing? Okay. Your costs are up 85% from a year ago. Take a beat. Think about the last time that you put all of your groceries into a cart, right? And compared it to pre-pandemic prices. That markup was nuts, right? In the last year alone, right? Those costs for groceries have gone up 85%. Everything is more expensive than it was before. This has been exacerbated by Donald Trump. Your utilities up 78% from a year ago. Healthcare up 60-something percent. Housing costs 66%. Gasoline 54%. Right? This is the economy under Donald Trump. You still talking about trannies? Are we still talking about the transgenders? Are they still around? I can't wait until the Grinch goes transgender, because I don't know how else you're going to tie in. I don't know how else you're going to tie in the transphobia that is largely, overwhelmingly informed by the stupidest bigots and nignogs out there, right? With the fact that you can't buy groceries, pay your utilities bill, pay your rent, get gas in your car, right? Get you some healthcare. Why you can't get groceries? Why you can't? What about gifts? You can blame trans people by the holidays by telling the kids that it was a transgender that came down from the chimney. The most phallic of things in a house, right? Down the chimney, the tranny went and stole your gifts, and that's why you don't have Christmas tonight, Timmy. A transgender took it. That's what happened. We're going to make the Grinch trans, already running around pantsless, right? I heard the Grinch identified as a furry. Why them cookies don't get eaten every year? Gluten-free, transgender. That's why. Transgender. How the transgender stole Christmas. That's where we're at. No. This is ridiculous, right? This is ridiculous. It didn't and it doesn't have to be this fucking bad. But we do have the holidays. We have the holidays coming up. That's got to be a relief, right? For the people who are not the freaks, who don't want to, how the non-binary name Sock stole Christmas, right? Can't wait for that. But we have something to look forward to, right? Yeah. How are they talking about gift giving, right? Because that's something, right? We got the Christmas thing. It's very Christian. They said they wanted to bring back Merry Christmas, right? Gift exchanges, generosity. These are the types of things that the right says that they're all about. And Fox News likes to espouse, we care about neighbors and we want to make sure that everybody's getting what they need. Okay, great. Why don't we pick up this clip on how Fox News is talking about the holidays?
Budget, budget, budget. You need a plan. Also, remember, adults don't need gifts, okay? Focus on the people in your life who are age 3 to 18. Grandma doesn't need slippers. If they don't live by you, don't get them a gift. Now's not the time to spend and break the bank sending packages across the country, Dana. Focus on the people in your life, ages 3 to 18. That's my 30 seconds for you.
They said, fuck your granny and her cold feet. They said, are you kidding me? This is supposed to be the heart of capitalism. In like the Super Bowl of capitalism. That's Christmas. And you are telling people they don't got to get gifts for nobody. Does somebody get gifts for you? You don't have to get them a gift back. That's you have to send them something in the mail. We're not doing that. We destroyed the mail. What mail? There's no mail. There's only male supremacy. That's the only male I know over here. They said, fuck your granny. She is on pension. She's on a fixed income. Okay. All of her friends are dead. The fixed income that she's on was before these massive price hikes under epidemic and disaster capitalism. This made me parched. I feel cold inside, but not as cold as your granny's feet. They said, don't get her slippers. They said, if it's anyone between 3 and 18, you don't need to get them no gifts. Does that sound like an economy doing well? What the fuck is this shit? This is nuts. We're just creating the absolute worst conditions for this. Is the greediest shit I've ever heard. Don't get your granny slippers. They're taking away. They don't even like vets, you guys. They don't even like the veterans. They gotta go. We have got to get this revolution kicking off soon. We do. Okay. So Trump's taking some L's, right? We know that we're this right now. That's okay. Still super cute. Not on us. Not on us. We saw some shifts, but I do want to talk about, and this is like the bulk of it. We're in our major arc right now. I'm going to keep this fast moving because I'm going to give you a little bit of knowledge, little bit of brain gum for my babies. Okay. The term populism is thrown on a lot, right? So what shocked everybody is that Zohran Mamdani, right? The Democratic Socialist upstart Muslim who was facing an absurd amount of Islamophobia running against billionaires and billionaire interests in New York. He wins, right? He wins because of this major groundswell of youth and black voters that went for Zohran Mamdani. We also saw a weird evolution of people wearing red MAGA hats that said MAGA for Mamdani. There were people who voted for Donald Trump that also thought, I'm going to vote for this guy too. Right? Mamdani has referred to Donald Trump as a fascist, right? Like many of us. So you would think that when they met, things might be explosive. You would think that comparisons between the two would seem absurd. But actually, they seemed to get on just fine. Largely because Donald Trump took a liking to Zohran Mamdani. I'm going to play this clip for you, right? Followed by another one to really illustrate how nuts they are. So we're going to play one clip. I'm going to take a beat and then just jump right into them. But I want to just say this, right? There's 3 things that I think matter with these two. I'm going to break it down for you, and it is going to be centered around populism. We are going to go over what that actually is and means, because weirdly enough, people don't seem to have a consistent idea of what populism is or means. So the question is, because I don't want to lose you, so I'm not going to bury the lead. Dang, I did already, because I should have said this up top. This is good. Can socialist populism, right, defeat authoritarian populism? That's the question. Can socialist populism defeat authoritarian populism? First, we're going to define what populism is. Then I'm going to break it down for you, right? But these are two guys. They're both from Queens, right? They have both had, and absolutely roll your eyes for this, right? And if, you know what, just drink a little water, especially after what we learned, right? Drink a little water. Get her some water. Get her some water right now. I smashed my bottle and keep forgetting to get a new one, so I'm just drinking from these gigantic liters, don't worry, my climate babies. I just need to wash out a water bottle. I've got it. Peep this, right? They're both from Queens. They have both had a really challenging experience in the media. And they both say many of the same things. Now, of course, how one government has operated has been antithetical to everything that they said they cared about, right? They said, we care about the groceries, we care about this. Now, we said, you dummies are going to find out that these are just talking points. But on the other hand, we were like, these are still the talking points that the Democrats need to embody. Those talking points, of course, would be considered populism, right? When he was talking about groceries or whatever, but how could groceries be considered populist? It's not the groceries themselves. It's in the framing. But let me hit you with this first clip on them meeting. What you're going to hear is a little bit of a presser, little bit of a presser, right? Where Trump is sitting at his desk. He's yapping to the press. The press are asking Mamdani and Zohran questions about their meeting and their different politics. Take it from here.
I want to ask the mayor-elect about a House resolution just passed overwhelmingly to condemn socialism, including with 86 Democrats, all of House Dem leadership, and the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, despite his endorsement of you. What's your reaction to that?
I have to be honest with you. I focused very little on resolutions. Frankly, I've been focusing.
Socialism.
I understand. I think the focus is on the work at hand. I can tell you I am someone who is a democratic socialist. I've been very open about that. And I know there might be differences about ideology, but the place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. That's what I look forward to.
And I want to clarify your answer to Stephen Nelson. Mm-hmm. He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist. And your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Mm-hmm. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about.
That's okay. You can just say yes. Okay. Yeah. It's easier than explaining it.
All right. So let me just. He goes, Mamdani was going to pull out an answer that wouldn't betray what he believes, and at the same time would not betray this fledgling zomance he has with Donald Trump, right? There's a line that you got to walk. There's a tightrope. Trump puts a hand on Mamdani's arm and he goes, it's okay, just say it. Now, this does affirm that we are in hell, right? I just want to be clear. Like, do you know how in your bag you have to feel to be like, no, it's fine. You could absolutely call me a fascist. It's totally fine. He knows that nobody in that room is going to report that with a negative spin on it that it requires, because he banned all those people from being in the presser with him. It's like, he's like, no, go ahead and say it. Yeah. And the significance of it means very little to him, but he clearly made a connection with this guy. I want to run this second clip because just in case you're like, well, it was a one-off, right? He's just being cheeky about the media. The second clip will bring it home.
Please. Mayor, why did you fly here? Aren't trains greener?
I'll use every form of transit, and I want to make sure that they're all affordable in New York City, and that's why making buses fast and free is a centerpiece of our
Did you?
There's a bus that
Well, but I know, but it'd be that's a lot quicker too. He's working very hard for him to be. That's a very long drive. I'll stick up for you. You know, the plane takes you 30 minutes, and driving takes you.
Yeah. Okay. So Ron Mamdani was asking, oh, Mr. Green guy or whatever, if you care so much about different forms of transportation, why did you fly here instead of taking a train? First of all, who wrote that question? Who wrote that question? What a stupid question. What do you want to say? It was my only means of conveyance. Like, what, why are you asking about this man's means of conveyance? Would you prefer him have to ridden up in a camel? Bitch, a camel? Is that what you were expecting? I guess, I get it. He's coming from Mamdanistan, right? He's coming from Mamdanistan, and they're just riding camels in New York now. There's Shakira law. Shakira law. Because the MAGA supporters didn't know what the other way was. They were just like, Sharia, that doesn't sound right. No, it's Shakira law. They believe in Shakira law. And that's a problem. And you know what we do? We do, right? Because underneath these clothes, there's a man with story. I'm sorry. Terrible joke, okay? Why would these two guys get along? What does it mean? How are people talking about it? I know how we might talk about it. I was most curious about how Fox News would cover this. I'm going to play this clip, and then I'm going to break this the burk down, okay? Let's run this Fox News clip on the response.
And he does.
Kennedy.
Well, for someone who's going to Trump-proof the city, he was certainly an adorable little fanboy in the Oval Office. And I actually think it's a good model for how we should treat each other over
I don't
Thanksgiving.
think Zohran was the fanboy.
Don't bring up politics at the Thanksgiving table. And maybe there is a way of talking about things where we find common ground. And never forget, Donald Trump is a populist. Zohran Mamdani, he reached out to voters. The affordability crisis is all about populism with a slightly different label. So, politicians finding common ground used to be how deals were struck in Washington. But everyone in leadership on the Democrat side, they have to demonize Trump. It's the only way to raise money, and it's the only way to win races. And, Mamdani had really, really solid message discipline, and he tried it.
So she is saying there's a similarity, right? There's a similarity in how they frame their talking points, what things matter to them and their campaigns. I'm going to end it here because that was such a ridiculous diatribe that you did not need to hear from me. Let me continue. But I was just like, I want to transition and like smack her around a bit. But, it's better if I just up my testosterone and fight waters. So listen, hilarious that they're now talking about coalitions, having literally tried every which way to marginalize us. I wish I could tell you exactly how we should feel about Trump and Mamdani having a successful and definitely, chummy meeting. But the truth is that Trump's politics, his actions, they're so erratic as to be unpredictable. And so the utility and the usefulness of this will largely be told by Zohran's side. I think it's smart to not have a massively antagonistic relationship to the president. I think it's also interesting because it harkens back to a Donald Trump from the first term who, if he met you in person and you could yap and talk and he felt a personal connection with you, well, then, maybe he wouldn't take away healthcare in that state. So the point is to not be in that position in the first place. It doesn't surprise me, though, because Zohran is playing chess, but also the guy's a charmer, and this is his job. His job is to get shit done. His job isn't to push his beliefs down the throat of everyone. His job, like ours, is to create results that do the talking for us. It's about the results of the beliefs, not the beliefs themselves, but what are the beliefs, right? Populism was mentioned. I've watched a lot of people yap about it. For the OGs, we covered this already. The question here is, we had a Zohran and Trump meetup. Can socialist populism defeat authoritarian populism? So first, let's define what populism is, okay? So I want to preface with this. I looked, I searched, I researched, I read. There is no hard definition of what it is. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. So I want to be clear. There's no hard definition of what populism is. It's more of like an interpretation and an application. Okay. So what's a good way to think about populism? It's in terms of, okay. So populism, there's no hard definition. It is a performance and an application. I think about populism the way that I think about drag. Okay. You know a drag performer when you see one, right? You know a drag performer when you see one. You couldn't classify exactly what drag is because the signs and the markers of what makes it drag shift from person to person, but there's just some things that are a mainstay and the application, right? It's why we don't get a drag performer mixed up with, say, a character, simply a character on the street or a trans woman, right? We know what a drag performer is and looks like, but there is no one specific definition or even interpretation of drag. So on some level, you have already heard or read something online or watched something online in the media around populism, right? We know that Trump won on populism. Some Democrats, some Democratic pundits, a lot of people across the left, a lot of people in the liberal world, a lot of people, hands down, are like, populism and populist policies is exactly what we need from the Democrats leftward, right? We need populism. We need economic populism. You've heard me say this too. I would love to see more economic populism. So what the fuck am I talking about, right? It's a range of political stances. Now we're going to talk about the application. Like what is it? How do we know what a drag performer is, right? Great. Perfect, right? So always populism, always, in the way that we can say we know that for the most part, drag's got to be on a stage, right, of some sort. We know in the hair and the makeup, but in the caricature and in the largesse, it's the application. So always a baseline for populism is there is a framing of the people and the elite. You have to have these two juxtaposing ideas. There's the people and the elite. I am the people, right? And they are the elite. So this is the ideational approach, right? So you have this dominant, charismatic figure. Sometimes it's figures, but more often than not, it's a figure that presents themselves as the voice of the people. So again, you got to have the people and the elite. And then you got this charismatic, large, dominant figure that says, I am the voice of the people, right? The ideational approach. And in this interpretation of populism, right, the people, we're actually good. The people, we're morally good in the world. We're a good force. And we're against the elite. And the elite are scurrilous. They're bad. They're self-serving. They're corrupt, right? Of course, we know populism, when you say that you're the people, that's defined, right? That's the subject to interpretation part, right? So it could be based along class. It could be based along ethnicity. It could be placed along national lines. We've seen this, right? We've seen this play out time and time again on the right. Trump ran on a populist machine. He used the talking points of I am the voice of the people against the elite, which I will never be able to, like, he had a whole show on the fact that he was literally the elite. It was a reality show because there was reality in it. And yet somehow he was not the elite. He was the guy that was going to drain the fucking swamp because that's America, baby. That's America. Right. But also there was a white nationalism thing that was going on, the ethnicity part. Right. So all you dispossessed, poor, or temporarily embarrassed, a millionaire, as Steinbeck was wont to say about Americans. Right. They all believe themselves to be temporarily embarrassed Americans. Millionaires, temporarily embarrassed millionaires, right? That's how they vote. That's how they operate. That's how they think. I don't know where all my millions went. Oh, I see the immigrants stole it. It's like, no. No. right? So how can Zohran and Trump both be populist, right? It's the same way that Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump were populist, right? Because we got both of these people framed as this. So Jan Werner Mueller is a leading scholar on populism, right? So the populist decides who the real people are. So when we say the people, the populist gets to decide that, right? And whoever does not want to be unified on the populist terms is completely and utterly excluded, right? Even if they happen to have the passport and the citizenship and the look. Marjorie Taylor Greene can be seen as one of them. She was at once part of within the populace of the people, right? But now she's not anymore, right? She's now been ousted, right? So, and then populists always present the elite as compromising, right? The political, economic, cultural, and media establishment. So the elite are coming in and they're shaping this in really corrupt, disgusting ways. The elite is not nuanced, right? The elite is not moral. The elite is seen as this homogenous entity that places its own interests at the expense of the interests of others, right? Of other groups, right? So that's large corporations, foreign countries, immigrants, right? So the elite puts the interests of corporations or foreign countries or immigrants, right? Or of their wealth above the interests of, quote, the people. So the term is primarily associated with moods and emotions. Again, it's very similar to drag, right? It's how it's interpreted is subject to the moods and emotions and, interpretation of the drag performer. Similarly, so is populism. But again, it still needs to be understood as drag. And we know that because there's just some things that are applied that always make it drag. But in populism, it's always the people and the elite, right? So the question is, and again, when I say the moods, it's not just the moods of the person who's saying I am the populist and I am I am the people. It's also how the people are interpreting that, right? So if they're tapping into anger, they're tapping into frustration, they're tapping into resentment. Hitler did this really well, right? The punishment that Germany experienced for their role in World War I, which a lot of people were against, the economic sanctions that were put on Germany for its participation and really, its organizing of World War I created the conditions, the economic conditions and disparity that would lead to, or certainly help inform and shape World War II. Hitler was able to use the rage, anger, resentment, and frustration of people whose belts were tightening year by year because of this, large economic sanctioning of Germany. And they used the economic disenfranchisement experienced by many and said the reason why you don't have money in your pocket is because of the Jews, right? The reason why you aren't happy in your life is because of the Jews. The Jews are the reason why our country is not strong anymore, right? And while they were saying this and trying to drum up attention and support for this so that they could establish what would eventually become the Third Reich, they targeted socialist organizations, socialist entities. They targeted labor unions. They targeted the LGBTQ community. This is often not talked about as much. All of this happened before the actualization of Hitler's rise to power. It was happening alongside. Then he used the legal system and essentially was like, hey, I want to legalize discrimination, but I want you to write it so that this is legally binding. Right? Because fascism uses the same playbook over and over and over again because they're hoes. But he had to get out of the way those people that would defend Jewish folks, that would be a thorn in the sides of their desire to consolidate their power. So they tap into that, right? I mean, Mueller will say that not everyone who criticizes elites is automatically a populist, but in our world, in America world, they are. Now, I do want to say that there's a free PDF of Mueller's work. So if you want to check that out, I found it helpful. Everything was like, this is what it is. And I'm like, this is literally not what it is. And then finally it was someone who was like, people really don't actually exactly know what it is. And I was like, okay. So then I was like, oh, this is just drag performance. Okay. So why does populism have a bad rap? That's what we don't know. It has that it has a bad rap, we know, but why, right? So in Europe, they had and have a lot of reason to feel mistrustful of populism, right? So it has a bad rap. So because there's a different history there. So they have different perceptions of what populism leads to, right? There, populism is connected with liberal commentators, irresponsible policies, political pandering, right? It's seen as demagoguery, right? Like just a source of manipulation, right? So populism and demagoguery are kind of used interchangeably, right? Oh, you just want to tell people that this is the reason why and give them an easy solution, and that shouldn't be trusted, okay? So that makes sense. But I do want to say why I think, I first of all, I do believe in the populist framing in an American context, because we're not dealing with regular populism, we're dealing with authoritarian populism. Right? Now, Europe is very familiar with this, right? Authoritarian populism has established itself as the third ideological force in European politics, okay? So Europe understands that this poses a long-term threat to liberal democracies, that populism, you can't have populism without eventually developing an authoritarian populism. So the question is, if we have another side to it, does that change things? Should we be avoidant of populism? I think we're so far past that point where it's like, don't. It's like, no, actually, you do. 100% do, right? At the same time, understanding what we're engaging in matters quite a bit. So once one party in a political system is making the argument that they alone represent the people. Only me, right? Only me. It then gets easier to justify bulldozing through institutions, bulldozing through traditions, through things like the Constitution, any kind of constraint, check or balance that could curtail any attempt to stop you. And you especially want to erode anything that protects the rights of your political opponents. You're like, absolutely not, right? So is populism, socialist populism, the antidote to authoritarian populism? I want to find that out. Like, I want to find that out. That the Democrats need to embody left-wing economic policies is a non-negotiable. We need populism across the left, right? But beyond that, I want to know. I want to know. I want to live long enough then because we don't know. You know, there's something called, and we've talked about this before, this sort of, horseshoe theory, where it's like one side starts to sound like the other side. And I'm like, people say it gets worse in extreme conditions, but I'm like, I think that's pretty much true of a lot of things. And I don't think that that's an inherently bad thing. What I do know is we need to get some W's. We need some dubs on the board. We need a lot more dubs. There was a dub in Seattle. We got a mayor who's also socialist at heart, to very minimal fanfare. But it did happen. When I tell you though, like, they've made this country so crazy. I don't even know what's going to happen. Like, part of the reason why I got this nickname Future is because I'm obsessed with it. People, I would make these projections and they'd be kind of trying. You can't even make projections no more. I don't know what the fuck is going on half the time. I know what a fascist is going to do, and I know we got to do what we got to do. And the first thing is we need dubs on the board. We need more dubs on the board. Right? Because what I can tell you is that identity politics is not it. And not the bastardized version of identity politics that the right stole and then pushed back out, and then the liberals then started to juggle, right? That's the one that fuck that one. The core of it that came from the Combahee River Collective, they were great. But for the purpose of this lesson, lecture, yap, whatever you want to call it, the identity politics that have been used are not the answer. They are not the answer. We have got to let that go to advance an economic populism and fold that in. Like somebody said, I saw a tweet that was just like, I came out as trans and my roommate was like, okay, cool. That's cool. What do you want to get to eat? That's actually about as much fanfare as there should be. Like, don't get me wrong, your community needs to celebrate you, but the idea that because you are this, you are entitled to that. You know what I mean? That's if the words are because I am, the only time that applies is because I am human, because I'm a person in the world, right? I'm entitled to water, clean food. I'm entitled to housing, dignity, right? Beyond that, let your community love you, whatever. But the idea that we can win by centering the non-policy based desires of a body of people who are frivolous at best. No. At the same time, let me be really clear, right? Trump spent tens of millions of dollars on anti-Trump ads, right? He portrayed Kamala Harris as an out-of-touch liberal elite. Those ads mostly went unanswered. Right. And the problem is that we look at that and we say, well, yeah, she is a liberal elite. That's like, she's out of touch. Of course she is. The whole establishment democratic system is. But again, right, we didn't have anything that was counteracting those ads. We didn't have any infrastructure that was representative of our beliefs. So getting more people who do that is key. At the same time, getting clearer about what things we care about and what things we need to start rejecting. Right? Because I don't want to say that identity does not matter. That's not what I want to say. Right? I just want to say that we value it too much on the left. I do think that is true. And I'm saying that at a time, and I'm aware that we're getting attacked left, right, and center, but that's evil's going to do what it does. I'm not clear about what it is that we believe. I'm not clear in what it is that we're fighting for, because the how and the where to start is where we crumble. And that makes sense. We have a bigger task in front of us. You know what I mean? But while we're figuring it out, maybe we get some W's. Maybe we try some coalitions. Maybe we take some risks. Because whether or not we do, choices are being made for us, and they're always shit. Right? Okay. So when the right started to target trans people as a lightning rod issue, that was fucked up, right? But then when we started to treat it as true, right? Then we started to treat it as completely true. Data had to catch up, and impact and legislation had to catch up with perception. Perception rules supreme in populism. So all to say, we can't allow ourselves to be so easily manipulated to buy into the war on trans people, the war on, there's a long list. I kind of can feel myself in the weeds. There's some things that I'm trying to work out that I'm not going to belabor and bring into this. Yeah, but there's some gender shit, the war, the framing, the division, my own biases that I am currently working through. But I do want to say it is happening. It's in the nascent stages, which is appropriate at this time. But you will start, we talked about it last year, but you will start to see a free speech movement start to, on the left, that is non-identitarian, that unites the professional class, all the dispossessed people, federal workers, scientists, researchers, right? Male people, all of them, who want, like, authors. We've got book bans. Everything that's been happening has been an attack on our free speech, our freedom of expression. And you already know that free speech protections happen so that we could what? Criticize the government, criticize wars, express an opinion. It was designed to protect the voice of the left. I don't need us to agree on most things. I just need us to agree on the most important ones. And first and foremost, that's quality of life. It's life and quality of life. Happiness, protection, education, healthcare, housing. Really simple stuff. Really simple stuff in one of the richest countries in the world. Like, please be so fucking serious. So, that's populism in a nutshell. It can be used against us very easily. It has. It can be also useful for our interests. There is a power structure. But what I think that we need now, more than anything, is less emphasis on what we're against and more clarity on the vision of the future of society, of America that we're fighting for. It's what the Democrats haven't given us. But you want to know something? We can't either. We haven't given it to each other because I don't think we know. I haven't heard a clear version of the future that we seek to build. I know most people who aren't even at peace with their American citizenship or identity, which is confusing to me. You know what I mean? Because it's not, you don't need to be at peace. I don't understand, because it suggests that one needs to be at war with it. No, it's where you're born, right? But in order to take ownership of you being here, an American citizen, you have to also take in part ownership of America. And people, I think for whatever reason, people are like, well, that's not leftist, and I don't buy into the state. Yeah, okay, babe. But if we can't name the thing, we can't address the thing. Do you get what I'm saying? We literally can't address it. So there's a lot of potential, I think, in economic populism. We've already seen it work. We've already seen it win. It won for Donald Trump. That was obviously the wrong one, but it also won for Zohran Mamdani. And it's because it speaks to the needs of the people. We don't need to create a performance. We don't need to focus on the enemy. We don't even need to focus on what's at stake. Fear-mongering doesn't actually work for the left. It works incredibly well for the right. They have enlarged amygdalas and smaller hearts. The smaller hearts part, I made up. But the enlarged amygdalas, where your fear receptors are, that's why they all talk about alpha male and, looks maxing, and they're all on testosterone, but are constantly like, I'm so afraid to ride the subway in New York City. Please, please, please grow a set. I don't care which set it is, but you need a set of something. Which one is it? You know what I mean? Alpha male. I haven't met a single alpha male in my life. I'm positive that if I ever did, that my titties will grow back. I told y'all, that's one of my favorite jokes I in the room. I said, if there was an alpha male in here, my titties would grow back. And then they all get really upset. But not the secure ones. Anyway, that's what we got. I want you to think about. I just want you to think about populism in this new way. If it's always the us versus them, is that the messaging that we need to win? And if it is us versus them, then who is the them? Right? Because what we know, if it's me and it's the they, them, we all know which side I'm choosing. But thankfully, it's not just up to me, it's us. And we need to decide how we're going to fight because that's where we fail. Oh my God, we're so good coming together against the thing. But when it comes to fighting for something, oh, that's when we go to shit, isn't it? Can't even agree that we should be talking about black shit. And again, you already know. I'll dead it here, and then I'm going to show you this clip to leave us on a high note. But I'll dead it here. I'll just say this. We got to win, y'all. Do you get what I'm saying? We have to win. I want to be clear about what is meant by populism, okay? Zohran Mamdani, Donald Trump, both considered populists. How is that possible? We could go on and on and on, right? But populism is very much like drag. I really want to bring this point home, okay? You don't know. You couldn't define drag so in such a hardline way. You could not define drag in such a hardline way. But you know it when you see it. It is a performance, right? And there's certain things that always make drag drag. Populism is really similar, right? Ideational populism requires it's the people. I am the voice of the people. I represent the people, and I'm against the elite. Somehow, the right loves to have an elite that says they're against the elite, that says they're for you, and then does everything the elite would want on steroids, right? And we have not seen in any major way huge strides on what socialist populism or economic populism for the left could look like. We got some glimmers of Bernie Sanders. If you were a more serious, smarter person, you saw better glimmers in Elizabeth Warren. But that's another argument for another day. I love my little matzo ball, though, so you'll never hear me have a problem with, Bernie bros. I think it is interesting, though, that there has been a subset of people who were very pro-Bernie who also happen to be extremely right-wing and deranged now, but whatever. Whatevs. Right? So we got Zohran Mamdani. We're seeing some shifts. Who's also running on economic populism. We now get to decide whether or not we have to look and see whether or not socialist populism, socialist economic populism, or socialist democratic populism, whatever you want to call it, can defeat authoritarian populism. That's where we're at with Trump and Mamdani. We should be looking at these belief systems, trying to figure out where we fit. Babe, it's time for drag. It's time for the show. Of course they were against drag people, right? Like, this thing gets me angry. Like, this whole, attacking drag performers reading books. I'm like, we thought they were attacking the drag performers. They were actually just going after the books. These niggas don't read. I have never come across a subset of people more antagonistic towards education in my life. But it's funny because we share a very similar distrust of what we perceive to be as the elites. So there actually is a lot of overlap. And that's why I'm snub my nose a little bit at the idea that this horseshoe thing is relative or just new or recent, where we all sound alike. It's like, no, actually, these might be on opposite sides of a spectrum, right? When you think left and right, But if you bend it, it doesn't matter, because either way, you're still in the margins. So the people who are on the margins of society are unshockingly experiencing society in a very similar way, right? You're getting the least amount of resources. You're getting the least amount of say. You have the least amount of power, right? But one side happens, right? And of course, we're talking about the most extreme sides of left and right and why they sound alike when it comes to populism. And yeah, we have a lot of the same experiences. It's just divided across what? This is so stupid, can't believe I'm saying it. Race. Divided across race. White people would rather and often see themselves more like those in the gaudy, gold enameled everything, versus somebody who looked like me. And that's so silly. First of all, of course you weren't going to relate. My side is significantly cuter, much cleaner, and better lotioned. We scrub our legs. But the other side is, that's not a what a small life. What a small way of understanding the world. It makes me sad. It makes me sad. And so when we reduce ourselves to something as simple as identity, I do expect better from us. I want better from us. And I think we overcorrected in the wrong ways. But I feel very, very hopeful for what's coming next. This was a tough year. It's not over yet. And it had to happen. The stress test that I mentioned a few months ago, a year ago, basically at this point, right? The one that you read about, it's kind of ending. With that is going to come activations and movements that are now well informed. You're going to start to see the sleeping giant that is Black organizers in America, because remember, we haven't been around. You haven't seen it. Who have now been studying the political landscape. We're going to come out with better, faster responses. You're going to start to see more mobilization. But shout out to boomers who get a bad rep, because they have been the ones largely doing these protests. And some of them are getting real clever with it. So this last video, because I want to be clear, the protests have been happening, and where we're all aligned isn't simply on economics. It's sending money to Israel. It's killing random children, right? In Palestine. It's murdering families and erasing entire generational lines in Palestine. These are things that people are against, right? They are vehemently against this. We align on these things. There may be places where we can win. Where we're not aligned is in immigration. That is our major, most urgent breakpoint right now in terms of how people are mobilizing because of how ICE is being used. So people have been fighting back. This is one that I really like. I'm going to tell you what it is right now, because you're going to hear things and you're going to see things, but you're not necessarily going to know what you're saying. So let me show you. Because Home Depot has worked so closely with ICE, right? There are certain companies, certain what is it? Buildings. Oh my God, what is it? Like a franchise? What the fuck is Home? What is it? A franchise? I don't even know what the fuck it is. But anyway, some corporations, some locations have been working very closely with ICE because they understand that hardworking people need to go to Home Depot multiple times a day sometimes to get the supplies that they need, right? Weird, because they said that the people that they were catching were like direlex, criminals, selling drugs. Do you think they're going to go buy a fucking ladder at Home Depot, a bunch of wood, glue? I don't build things. I don't know. Stuff that people use to build things and patch things up. Right. That's, totally. That's where they're going to go. So they've been sweeping up random people, sometimes Americans, sometimes Native Americans. Don't forget that part. They were just like, yeah, no, we pulled you up in an ICE sweep. They're like, no, I'm from here. Yeah, no, I'm from, no, you're not from, I'm from here. I am from thousands of years before you got here. I'm from here. They're just scooping up everybody. So one of the things that people have done to fight back, and this is, as soon as we hit this, I am going to signal us out. But they have been clogging up Home Depot's organizers, right? Resistors, revolutionaries in their own small ways, in their own rights, champions for the cause, the causa. They have been buying 37-cent, like these scrapers, right, to clog up the lines, to fuck up Home Depot sales. And you know what? I'm really here for it. Why don't we watch one of these videos right now? Yep, just a long line. People got their signs on, their shirts. You're seeing a very long line of people of all races, ages, classes.
You can come to this side. Come to this side for customers to walk through.
Standing in line, some of them with signs, some of them with T-shirts, clogging it up, clogging up Home Depot. Right, we're going to make it very difficult for you to operate this business as usual. And you know what? That's the last under fascism. That's the last fucking thing that should be as usual. Business, definitely not. What do we always say? No normal. No peace. What do we always say? No, there's no peace. No peace.
What are you buying?
That's right.
Nice scraper. Nice.
See? What are you buying?
What are you guys buying?
See? What are you buying? Ice scraper.
We are buying ice scrapers.
Ice
Thank you.
What are you buying?
Ice scrapers. Yep.
Nice scraper.
And you know what they're doing after they buy them? They're burning them.
What are you buying today?
I'm buying ice scraper.
Oh, yeah.
Another ice scraper.
What are you buying today?
I am buying an anvil putty knife.
Honestly?
Yes, ice scraper. I'm going to tell you this right now. This makes me happy. Everywhere you look, there are pockets of resistance. There are people who are ready and willing to fight. And don't forget that this is what it looks like. Disruption also looks like this. I know that we've been on this like mass mobilization is so awesome. And when everybody's on the street and it's beautiful, it's spiritually corrective and highly ineffective at this stage, right? We have made it so that mass mobilization is the first thing that we do out on the streets. And honestly, it's supposed to be the last thing that you do because all the prep that goes in, that's supposed to go in before you get to mass mobilizations, all the critical connections, the coalition building, the campaigns, the call to actions, what are the target areas? Who are the targets? What's the power map, right? How are you going to continuously escalate on this and add pressure? Do you get what I'm saying? When we just go out on the streets, right? The mass mobilization connected to nothing tangible, right? That's it. We've played our best hand. All they need to do is weather the storm. We hope that they fold, right? We hope that they fold. More often than not, they don't. The way that it works is you hit critical connections and then critical mass, right? So you're looking at different pressure points. You're creating cracks and fissures in their coalition. You're finding out names and shadow entities. You're disrupting business as usual. These things are happening spontaneously, but that's a type of intelligence that moves into an in and out of a brain trust that eventually maneuvers, gets more intelligent, and turns into a mass mobilization effort. So I'm already seeing the things that I need to see, right? That makes me know clearly that we are evolving, that people want to fight, that they want more. I can't think of better conditions to find people who want to fight, who want to build, who want to try, right? Many of those people are listening right here. So I love you all so, so much. It is a weird time to be alive. I'm discovering, and we'll continue to discover, that was pretty much every time. So fucking weird. So weird to think that we have always just been basic. I think we might have been. But also so incredible. I love people for the very same reason that I love sports, right? And what is sports without people? You need it. Because on any given day, with the right energy and the right belief, even the worst team can defeat the best, right? And we just happen to be the best team in the worst conditions. For us, it's largely perspective. And once we get that on lock, it's a fucking wrap, right? It is a fucking wrap. So with that, get your granny some slippers, get your girl some water. Don't listen to these people. Seek out art and things that make us fucking happy. Like, yeah, it would be nice if we had some national forest at the end of this and some goddamn trees. What about the animals? What about the fucking animals? This is our generation, our fight, ours to win. And you want to know something? It doesn't even take that much to do it. They are so certain of their victory. We're going to art of war these niggas in the gayest way. Trans it up. I do have to say before we go, though, it did make me laugh to think of some like very long
white trans woman falling down a chimney, looking at some cookies, being like, these got gluten in them. This ain't right. You know what I mean? Imagine, and then just leaving like a little lump of coal. You know, no trans people are going to do that. They're going to leave you some books. They're going to leave you some books, and they're going to leave you a subscription to Duolingo. Do you know what I mean? I've lost my mind. Okay. I wish I never learned about felching. My mind is felched. Do you know what? I gotta go. I don't even know what I just said, and I'm pretty sure it was not good. I love you all so much. Thank you for listening to The Deranged Dark Woke. Always. I believe in us, and I believe in you, and don't ever doubt it. So, with that, love you.